Okay, the green gold color has kind of dried on the Spellcrow Forest Dragon, and we are gonna press on and try to highlight it with this. This is the Gauss Blaster Green from Citadel. This is an old pot. God, man, I'm not great at keeping my paints mixed, but there's a little bit. Let's see what it looks like on the palette. Well, looks good. I mean, that's kind of the color we're wanting, a little lighter green. Let's see how it does on the wings before we go crazy with it, okay? So we're just gonna lightly brush it. Well, I think that's gonna work nicely. So let's just lightly brush it on this right wing and see what we end up with. So there it is, right versus left. Yeah, it's just gently picking out the highlights. You know, and there's so many just beautiful highlights on this resin. Very delicate, but yeah, it really does a nice job of kind of brightening up the miniature. Let's try to add a little bit more of it. God, I gotta get these paints mixed a little better, don't I? Not easy though, man. As the paints sit there, and these have sat there for a while, you know, the mixing is not easy. So yeah, there we go. A little bit of color there. Looks better on the right wing than the left wing, doesn't it? This kind of got a little too watery. Hang on, let's see if we can salvage, dry more. Kind of doubling down on it. Looks okay. Look. This is gonna be a lot of different layers of color for this dragon. So it's not panic time yet. There's a little bit of skin here. And where else? Down here. And along the upper part of his tail. We're just trying to find some highlights. Under his arms. Yeah, that worked better. Yeah, not bad. Okay, so that kind of had some mixed results there, and of course the underwing. So I'll try to get it dried up a little better. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to like apply such a large sort of like area of color uniformly, you know, especially when you're using like miniature paints are much like, compared to like other paints, they're much more diluted right out of the bottle. So it's kind of like not super uniform, but let's see. You know, the other place I really want to try to bring out some highlights is the face. And I think, well, that's a good start. You know, as with all these things, you can just like get as detailed or not detailed as you want to be. That's not bad. You know, I agree it's not good, but it's like these paints are like, you shake the heck out of them, but okay, well that actually looks like paint at least now. So, okay. Try another, just a light layer. I like doing this in real time. You know, you actually see the process and like all the kind of mistakes and all the, you know, the things to do to salvage it or like fix mistakes. Not that any of these are mistakes, but these are like, well, as they say, happy accidents. That looks better. Yeah, look at that. It's got that glowy effect that we were kind of looking for. See, look at that. So mix your paints, kids. That's the moral of this whole story today. So this thing was such a pain to put together. It's a beautiful miniature. Do not get me wrong. I love the miniature. It's beautiful. It's beautifully sculpted, but oh my God, putting this thing together. Like, you know, you think plastic models are hard to assemble, and they're some are pretty hard. I mean, no doubt. But like, you know, when I came up, I mean, everything was metal. You know, so metal models or miniatures, you know, or they have their own challenges, but resin, especially this thin resin. I mean, this resin is so thin on the wings you can see through it, and so it creates a little bit of it creates a lot of like modeling challenges, you know, that you have to kind of deal with, and you gotta kind of, you know, sculpt the resin a little bit to make it work. Yeah, but you know what? Giving that paint a little bit of time, getting a little better mix on it made all the difference here. Look at that. So it's coming together nicely. And my brush is kind of dry enough that I can go after the head now. God, that looks good. That doesn't look bad. You know, that does not look bad. I may do this too, just to, I know I wanted to kind of make this gold, but man, this color's kind of working for me all of a sudden. And it's so funny how that happens. Like, you start off and it's just like, God, this looks like a mess. But, you know, as you kind of work it and you kind of, you know, make a few choices, and then you kind of, you know, double down on some of those choices. Usually your first instinct is the right instinct, you know, because you know what kind of you like, and, you know, they're your miniatures. You do whatever you want with them. So yeah, so I thought we had imploded right off the start, but we kind of salvaged it a little bit. Look, we haven't gotten far on this miniature, but we were able to get a little bit of highlighting, a little bit of color. A little bit of color, a little bit of lighting, a little bit of shade going on. So that looks really good. The big issue now is, what do you do with like the armored scales here along his tail and on his like legs and also on his arms? You know, gold was my first like idea for that, and well, like I just said, usually if you stick with your first idea, you're going to end up in a place that's pretty good. Let's stick with that idea. Let's stick with the gold. So I'm going to close this thing up, and then let's see if I can make the gold work. I'm going to dry this brush off in some filthy water. This actually is, no wait, no, I thought this was a Citadel brush. This is another Liquitex brush. Love this brand. So not super expensive, you know, and these brushes have kind of been worn out and kind of retired from canvas and panel duty, so you know, now they're stuck to miniature duty. Never throw your brushes away. There's always a use for them. Here's a good example of a brush that we'll use. This interesting brush. So we'll use this brush to try to catch some of these scales and see if we can get a little bit of detail on it, and hopefully shake the heck out of this gold. It's just so watery. Okay, let's see if we can pick out some of those scales with this angled brush and see what that effect looks like. And we'll start right here at the top. Not bad. You know, it's a very light effect, but I'm gonna lean into that and say, you take advantage of the fact that the paint is not like super thick. And then let's see how we like that. That looks pretty interesting, actually. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, maybe you can. It's got an interesting effect. You can even see on the camera here. Let's try to do the under part of his neck. It's interesting. Like it's literally become like a gold wash. Yeah, that's kind of, I guess that's kind of what I was thinking about. And then we'll do this, his back, of course. And then get up his tail. I love when things work out like this. Like, you know, you kind of have this vague idea And then you just kind of just start to just apply, you know, paint and shade and like dry brush and stuff onto a miniature, and it kind of like somehow miraculously, despite everything, starts to look pretty good. And I think like that's kind of what's happening here with this poor dragon. So you know, this is a premium miniature though. So you know, this is a premium, super well sculpted resin miniature. So this miniature is actually like $30 to $50, I think, is what the price is. So you know, you gotta be a little bit careful with some of these more expensive miniatures. You can't just start just like applying color to them. So I did have a little bit of an idea, and many times the manufacturer, you know, they'll give you some ideas from their, like, you know, concept art, or they'll have like a painted example of the miniature, just to kind of like give you a feel for what the miniature maybe might look like. So yeah, that's that gold effect. I don't hate that. Let's do this arm here. So watch some of that off. Perfect. I love metallics, you know, and you certainly can overuse them, no doubt about that, but I think bang for buck, metallics. Are y'all's hobby spaces as just totally disastrously unkempt as mine? My wife gets so mad at me about that, but, you know, it's kind of like, you know, creativity requires chaos, am I right? So let's see, I'm trying to keep it a little bit neat, you know, because I'm just trying to, because we're not going to paint everything gold. We're just going to try to paint this, the scales, like a little bit of a golden tinge, and then the bones sticking out of him. We'll, of course, try to make it a bone color. Let's do the legs. You know, so you're not a dragon unless you have some leg armor. Okay, perfect. And then this leg, we're just gonna jab that. You see how this angled brush works super well to kind of like, even though it's like a massive brush, it works super well to kind of get in there. And you can like just very precisely apply paint. But if my first few videos have shown you anything, miniature painting is not a lot about precision. It's a little bit about precision, but you would do much better overall by just focusing on color concepts and shading and dry brushing. You know, by doing that, you can just produce such beautiful miniatures. Hopefully this is going to become a beautiful miniature as I finish that. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of giving me that gold green dragon effect I was hoping for. I'm gonna water down my brush a little bit, and then I'm gonna dip it here, more water, and then I am going to, what? I was thinking about just gently dragging this along and just seeing if I can pull some color into these wings a little bit. Not bad. It's a very delicate effect on this gold, but I like it. You know, like I said, the whole concept I had for this dragon was like a gold shimmery type thing, and it's kind of becoming that. You know, maybe like just bringing out some highlights. You don't want to go nutty with the, you don't want to overdo it on the metallics, but let's overdo it on the metallics. The other thing that's interesting on dragons and winged creatures is the underwing the same color as the on top wing? That's always a question I have. Okay, well, that and more burning questions answered on part 3 of the Spellcrow Forest Dragon video. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.